Welcome to the Den of Dissent. This is a show where we challenge the current culture and mainstream talking points of the day. What is the news telling us? What is the culture telling us? Where is our civilization headed? And by what standard do we judge these issues? Do you agree or do you dissent? Let's find out. Okay, so let's get into Charlie Kirk's faith and what he says about his beliefs. So I found some clips from an interview. I mean, you can find Charlie Kirk talking in his own voice, talking about what he believes in. But this is a quick clip from Kirk Cameron, where he interviewed him and just asked him some basic principles that Charlie Kirk believed in.
Why is religious freedom the mother of all freedoms?
First and foremost, it's the freedom to worship your own creator, the reason why you exist. And also the Founding Fathers designed this system of self-government, believing that only with a moral and religious people this was possible. It's John Adams' quote where he said, "The Constitution was written solely for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate for the people of any other." And so limited government is only possible when people are able to regulate their own decisions and conduct, particularly in religious communities, or having at least the church or the worship of God as a centerpiece of your life. So this idea of liberty, the way that the Founding Fathers understood liberty, is not the traditional libertarian view of liberty that we've come to realize in America. It's the ability to pursue virtue without somebody getting in the way. The necessity of virtue was fundamental to the American founding. 55 out of 56 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence were Christians who regularly attended church. At least a dozen, Kirk, were pastors, and maybe even more.
Right.
And more than that, had religious degrees of people that went to religious institutions. State barriers and boundaries were actually the beginning and the end of certain religious traditions that had certain perspectives on which strain of Protestantism was the best and most effective way to practice Christianity. For example, Pennsylvania was heavily Quaker, right? We all know that example. And so the Founding Fathers were only able to articulate a doctrine of separation, were able to participate in the separation. It was a promise to every single strain of Protestant tradition in
fast forward a little
the
bit.
system. And as soon as you lose religious freedom, state control then begins to set in.
You know, you said something earlier on in that answer where you said that the only reason we're able to handle freedom in America is because people have understood the value of self-government. And really what that is the pursuit of virtue. But how does that relate to being religious? Right? Were the founders just going, well, we just prefer that people are religious, and yeah, a lot of us were pastors and ministers, but someone might say, wait, Charlie, are you implying that in order to be virtuous, you've got to have a religious root in there? Is it really that important, or can't we just be atheists and be good?
Yeah, I'm sure there's good atheists. I get this question a lot. There's a lot of good atheists out there. They're good because they're practicing the Judeo-Christian ethic. They just don't want to admit it. And so the question is, what is good? I always ask young people, I say, well, what do you mean I can't be a good atheist? I said, you could be a good atheist. I've never said that. Where do you get this definition of good from? What is right? What is transcendent? What is evil? These are really big questions. And thankfully, we have an amazing tradition in the Christian world of what all these things mean. It's good to try to grow closer to your Creator. It's good to defend the innocent. It's good to tell the truth. It's evil to call good evil and evil good. It's evil to turn your back on those that can't defend themselves. It's evil to disobey your parents. It's evil to take another life. We take this for granted because it's kind of been meshed into the DNA of Western culture.
Right.
And it's not normative to the human experience. So to answer your question, freedom is not sustainable if you remove religion. And I'll be even more specific. Freedom is not sustainable if you remove Christianity. Eventually, it will implode. Eventually, you will be ruled simply by your senses.
Okay. So again, that's Charlie Kirk in his own words. He's talking about the founders. He's talking about religion, how you can't have a virtuous society in a sense without religion. He talks about one of the founders. I don't know if it was Madison who said, I forgot who it was, but said that our Constitution is for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for any other. Charlie Kirk goes on to say, it is evil to disobey your parents. So he said it's evil to take life. And then he talks about what is good and being virtuous. So the same people that play these clips about, these selective clips about Charlie Kirk talking about guns and pilots and things like this, they won't play a clip of Charlie Kirk talking about having a virtuous society or Charlie Kirk saying it is evil to take life. Yeah, the same people that get on Instagram and say that Charlie Kirk was Charlie Kirk was taken out by the same energy that he put out. Some people have been saying the chickens have come home to roost. He got what he preached. The same hatred that he preached came back to him. How does this clip reflect that? Where do you hear Charlie Kirk saying that killing people is good or taking the life of someone else is good or abortion is good or anything like that? He's arguing for moral, religious, and virtuous people. He's arguing for Christianity. I don't know if any of you have read the Bible, but the Bible does talk about some of these different principles. So this is what Charlie Kirk is arguing for, and this is why it's confusing for me and for a lot of people, because we're looking at some of these comments and we're saying, where is this coming from? Personally, I think, it's coming from a place of hatred. It's just because people just straight up don't like Charlie Kirk because maybe he's white, maybe he's conservative, or maybe he's Christian. That's just what it boils down to. But again, MSNBC is not going to play these clips. D.L. Hughley, he's not going to play this clip. All the critics are not going to play clips like these. No. Anyway, let's go on. I'm going to try to wrap it up soon. You kind of get the point. Oh, this was a clip I thought was interesting where a black woman comes to one of his campus rallies and they talk about fatherhood. So let me just play this clip so you can see for yourself.
Or where Darwin articulated, which is the survival of the fittest, a eugenicist.
Another thing Charlie Kirk was arguing about was a society that doesn't have any morals, any moral code, will be a society that is ruled by its passions and its senses. So you will have chaos because people are just reacting off emotion. That's kind of like what's going on right now, right? As a matter of fact, when I read some of these comments, some of these hateful comments towards Charlie Kirk, I'm seeing what a chaotic society looks like, a society without virtue and morals looks like, because you're reacting off of emotion and your senses. You didn't really do any research. You didn't dig into Charlie Kirk's philosophy, so to speak, and look at videos like this to see what he was talking about. That's a characterization of a society that is ruled by emotions. The same thing that he's talking about. Anyway, let's go on.
Type experiment, and we as Christians should reject that. How are you? What a beautiful kid that is.
Thank you.
What a gift from God.
Much.
Yeah.
She truly is. She is the biggest blessing. Something that kind of has me on the fence of whether or not I go kind of full blown more conservative or moderate is just seeing how
Give it up. That is a gift from the Lord, everybody. That is just beautiful.
I see that, we're starting to save a lot of money from things such as Doge. But do you think that some of that money should go back to maybe reforming the way that welfare is done to help poor families who do want to kind of pursue that American dream?
Great question. The number one objective of any social welfare program should be, how do we keep the family together and put dads back in the family? Unfortunately, in the black community, dads are the most absent of any community. About 2/3 of all black youth will be raised without a stable father around. And I know it's crazy, right? And that little precious angel of yours deserves to have a father around. And unfortunately, as we've removed dads from families, government has come in and has taken the place. So some people need help and they need social assistance. All of that should be about incentivizing the dad staying around, not the dad leaving. The Democrat Party does not talk about dads at all. The Republican Party, we are talking about how men need to be men again, in the home, take responsibility, provide for your family, and with strong families comes smaller government and a better country. If we are honest with ourselves, Black America.
Did you just see that? He talks to a black woman. She has her baby with her. He says, that is a beautiful baby. He's telling another black woman this, that she has a beautiful baby. Okay? She talks about welfare. He says, we have a problem with black dads being absent in the home. More black fathers need to be there. They need to be present. He says that baby, talking to her and her baby, we don't know what their situation is, but he's saying that baby, for instance, deserves to have a dad. We need to have something that gives dads incentives or something like that. He is arguing for black fathers to be home with their children. He is arguing for a black family to be intact, to be unified, for the man and the woman to be at home with their child, raising their child. How is this man a racist bigot that you claim he is? How can you sit there and see something like this and say that this man is so despicable? The very people who are black, brown, Hispanic, pointing fingers, some, not all, some, whites as well, pointing a finger at this man and saying that he was divisive. How was that divisive? This man literally just sat. I just played you a bunch of clips with him talking to black people, and I did it specifically. I specifically use those examples of black people because, you know, racism is like America's biggest sin, according to some people. It doesn't matter. I said this the other day. I said Charlie Kirk could have been a pedophile. But if he was a racist pedophile, his racism would have been his biggest crime. Some people would have bypassed, they would have overlooked his pedophilia, if he was, right? And they would have criticized his racism more. They would have pointed a finger at that. That's the crime that they would have been more concerned with. Again, this is what America's biggest sin is to some people. I don't want you to misquote me and say, I said that Charlie Kirk was, this or that. No, I'm saying this is how people view racism. Racism is at the top of the hierarchy of sins, of evils in America. And you say this man is being divisive, and he just literally told this woman this black woman that she has a beautiful baby, and he is arguing for black dads to be at home, taking care of their families and their children. That's, you know who else argued for that? The Nation of Islam argued for that. They argued for the black family. The Nation of Islam, some black Muslims, a lot of pro-black leaders have talked about how the government wants to separate the black family, destroy the black family. The white man wants to tear apart the black family and all of this. Now here you have a white man actually arguing for the black family. Anyway, let me go on. I'm going to wrap this up. I want to saturate your mind with a bunch of Charlie Kirk clips that will just disprove everything that you're saying about him. This is my whole point. I'm driving the point home. That's what I'm trying to do, if you haven't noticed. So if you think I'm being too long-winded or too extensive, I'm playing too many clips, well, that's the whole point. That's what I'm trying to do. So you can't come back to me and say, he was a racist. He was divisive. No, you can't, because you're seeing it in front of your face that he actually is the opposite of that. Anyway, let's wrap it up soon. Hold on.
Has been used and abused by the for your family.
He's talking about
strong families
Black
comes
America
smaller
in this
government
next
and a
clip.
better country. If we are honest with ourselves, Black America has been used and abused by the secular left over the last couple of decades. And I believe as we have removed God as the center of our society, every community in America has suffered, but especially the black community. You see, when you remove God as the center of your society, something else becomes your God. And it is a tragedy because black America is a faithful community, and a portion of the country with high church attendance understands that without this moral center or this moral core, you do not actually have a nation. You have something that once would resemble a country before. I have always had a focus and a heart for black America because I believe that black America could be and should be doing so much better in this country and has been let down so much by left-wing ideas, left-wing policies, defund the police, destroy the American family. And so I wanted to try to do our role. And I think that the path forward is not going to be more pandering or more free stuff.
Again, he's saying that blacks are faithful. They go to church. He says he wants to focus on blacks and he has a heart for the black community. Do you know that Charlie Kirk was on staff of an organization called Blexit, where Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum, they founded that organization? This was an organization founded specifically to cater to the black community and kind of getting a message out that's different from the Democrat Party and the mainstream media, or what the mainstream media is telling black people. They promote fatherhood, they promote the nuclear family, they're promoting morality, Christian principles, etc. So Charlie Kirk was speaking to that. And Charlie Kirk, like I said, he was on staff of that with that organization. So here you go. This racist, bigot, white man decides to become part of an organization that wants to promote the betterment of black people. And let me just pull it up on screen, actually, so that you can see. This is Blexit right here, okay? And it says, Blexit. It's powered by Turning Point USA. That's Charlie Kirk's organization. Charlie Kirk's organization, TPUSA, powered Blexit. It is the largest minority grassroots movement in the country. We focus on shifting culture through electric live events, through thoughtful grassroots organizing and inspiring educational initiatives. Blexit stands for the Black Exit from the Victimhood Mentality. Come on, hold on. Where's my horn? What are you telling me? What are you telling me? This racist white man powered another black organization to go out there and empower other blacks to start a black exit from the victimhood mentality, to not feel like you're a victim, but instead to feel like you're empowered through God to do certain things, start a business, whatever, become an entrepreneur, take care of your family, be a good father, be a good mother, all of that. All of these good principles that the average person, I would say, would not disagree with. Why would Charlie Kirk go out of his way to start an organization like that? Let me just pull up. I just want to show you that he is on the staff. But anyway, it says Blexit Education. Education is essential to transforming today's culture while also fostering the next generation of minorities. As a result, Blexit offers educational programming for both adults and youth that focus on basic civics, American history, and other critical topics without influence of progressive ideology. So in other words, Blexit, you're not going to learn about queer theory through Blexit. You're not going to learn about how, a man should be his true self and go get surgery and grow breasts or, wear purple wigs or anything like that. No, you're going to learn about non-progressive ideology. You're going to learn about being a man, what it is to be a man, what it is to take care of your family, those things that a lot of people do agree with. Okay? I know people and relatives, I could say, okay, that are pointing a finger at Charlie Kirk, but would agree that a man needs to be a father to his child, needs to take care of his family, should believe in God, these basic moral principles. But at the same time, those people would point a finger at Charlie Kirk and say he's being divisive. Where does that make sense that this man will go out and start an organization like this specifically to help black people in this way? I got to show receipts. Hold on. Let me pull this up real quick. About Blexit. Let's see. I'm trying to pull up. Okay, so this is the Blexit team. These are the founders. Pierre Wilson, who actually wrote a letter about Charlie Kirk. He wrote a commentary about how thankful he was to Charlie Kirk on the Blexit website. You go to staff. Who's on the staff of Blexit? Look at that. Charlie Kirk, TPUSA founder and CEO. Pierre Wilson, and so many others. So I had to bring that up. I had to show that, just so people could be refuted with all of these crazy talking points that they have. Pierre Wilson, who was a black man, I just showed you who he was. He wrote a letter about Charlie Kirk. He said the man behind the platform. Charlie Kirk was the man behind the platform of Blexit, Black Exit. Why would a racist man care so much about black people and trying to get them to think a certain way regarding taking care of their families, becoming or transforming their lives, staying with one another, being unified within the family structure, staying in church, so and so forth, on and on it goes. I'll just read you a few quick words that Pierre Wilson said. He said, "There's a difference between knowing someone in passing and truly knowing them. I had known Charlie Kirk for years. We spoke here and there, crossing paths in this movement. But when Blexit merged with Turning Point USA, that was when I truly got to know him." He said, "I'll never forget our first one-on-one meeting." He asked the question, would TPUSA really care about us? Would the merger really change who we are? I believed in the mission, but I also felt the weight of representing others. I wanted clarity for them as much as for myself. The first few minutes of the meeting took me by surprise. Instead of diving right into structure or strategy, we talked about family. We shared about our wives, our children. We talked about our faith. We connected as men first, not just as colleagues. In that same meeting, Charlie told me he wanted TPUSA to be my home for a long time to come. I told him how much I believed in TPUSA and that I would love nothing more than to continue building its vision. That set the tone for everything that followed. I would encourage people to go check out Blexit and go check out TPUSA. But see, again, CNN, MSNBC, D.L. Hughley, all these people that call Charlie Kirk a racist, bigot, they're not gonna look at this information. They're just not. And that shows the bias. I'll play this last clip. I want to pull up some articles real quick, and I'm gonna wrap it up. This is Charlie Kirk talking to a young black man who was talking about how he just became a father, and he's getting some advice from Charlie Kirk.
One that resonates with core values that are
less, chaotic with all the on my conscience as I'm. Yeah, so it's gonna be I'm in the service, and I have my wife here with me, and we're about to have a kid. So you see now we're back there. Yeah, so it's gonna be obviously, it's going to be my first kid. I'm nervous like a normal parent, but one of the biggest things that's, things that's weighing on my conscience as I'm about to be a dad, is just the environment I'm raising my kid in. So, I was lucky to be born in a time where it was less, chaotic with all these, gender this, gender that, LGBT, A, B, C, D, whatever you want to call it. All that stuff was not as relevant when I was growing up, but my kid, is about to come into a time where I feel like we're just fighting to know what man and woman is. And that's something that's super basic to me growing up. So me as a dad, the last thing I want to do is to hear my son come back to me saying, "Hey Dad, I'm going to a college to hear about what a man and woman is." Even though, 15 years down the line, I'm like, yeah, I did that back when I was, age or whatever. So that's my biggest question is how do I have the confidence in knowing that the life that I'm about to bring into this world is something that I can at least control to some point. God controls everything, but Amen. Something I can control at some point where I don't have him going, having to fight these trials of these weird people out here?
What a great question. Isn't that just terrific? I love that. I'm a new father. We have a 20-month-old, so I'm by no means an expert. But you'll learn that kids spell love T-I-M-E. And that's one of the most important things that as a father, every minute of time that you can spend is valuable and precious, right? It's not as easy. You might have to, serve and be deployed and all that. It's the most important thing you can do. Remember, the scriptures tell us children are a blessing of the Lord, and you are the guardian of that child, right? Which means you must protect that child from outside influences. There are 3 types of people in this world. There are predators, there are infants, and the protectors of infants. You fall into one of those 3 categories. So you're about to welcome an infant into the world. And especially as the head of the household, the male, you must constantly be looking at the threats, right? You must constantly be looking at the attack vectors, because there is a growing, unregulated, unchecked community of predators in this country that are coming after children younger and younger and younger. And it's you as the father to instill values from a very young age. And so I'm by no means an expert, but I could tell you this. I have seen over many years parents that have brought their kids to turning point events, parents that have exposed their kids to these ideas, and it bears fruit. The earlier you introduce them to these ideas, the earlier you get them excited about Jesus and the Word and the Scriptures. And the final thing is, the creepy thing that I've learned, not creepy, is how much even an 18-month mimics the parent's behavior and how much that they are in the mold. Everything you do, from what you say to how you act. So not as if there's like enough pressure already on you, right? Right? But look at that as like, I got to be the best version of myself. And as soon as you get married, you are no longer a boy and you become a man. But when you become a father, a whole different thing comes in, right? Because becoming a husband is awesome, and that you'll always have that. Father is like a different level, right? Yeah. And balancing the paranoia with the fun times is something that all of us new fathers have to realize. And I get told this all the time from parents.
Okay, so that was that. That was Charlie Kirk talking to a young black man who just became a new father. And he's saying he said the earlier that you introduce your child to Jesus, the better. He's talking about God giving that man, that father, the responsibility of being a protector. Charlie Kirk is giving advice to a young black father. Again, these are not the clips that mainstream media is going to play for you. These are not the words that people are going to remember. Certain people are going to remember about Charlie Kirk. These are not the words that some of these people accusing Charlie Kirk of being such a racist person are going to look for, are going to play. These are not the words that are going to stand out in their head. No, what's going to stand out in their head are selected, edited clips of Charlie Kirk talking about black pilots, Charlie Kirk saying certain women were brainless. That's what's going to stand out more than Charlie Kirk talking about the gospel, telling a black woman that her baby is beautiful, starting Blexit, a black organization, partnering up with organizations like that to help blacks to talk about Jesus, to talk about fatherhood and family. No, this is not what people are going to remember. And another thing too is, I see people, they'll take certain comments, right, that Charlie Kirk said, and they'll use that comment to define his whole life, even though I still don't see that, how those comments could warrant the type of reaction that it is from certain people. That's what people will do. They'll take a few things, take it out of context, and use those comments to define this man's whole life, right? Let me ask you something. Have you ever said anything wrong in your life, or something that maybe you could have said differently? Have you ever done anything wrong in your life? I'm not even saying Charlie Kirk necessarily did something wrong. I'm just saying certain things that he said were taken out of context. But have you ever said anything wrong? Have you ever done anything wrong in your life? If I was to go back and look at your life and take an example of something you said or did wrong, and I use that to define your whole life, would you say that was fair? But that's what you guys do. That's what some of you do out there. And you just paint him. You take a broad brush and you paint this man in a certain image because of a few selected, edited clips. But if someone did that to you, you would not want them to do that to you. And certainly if a white man did that to you, you would say that they were racist, and you wouldn't want that to be done. Anyway, so I just had to point out all of those examples. Sorry that I was exhaustive. And so we're going to wrap up here. But see, when I said earlier that I want to see things through a certain lens, I want to see things the way you see them, I also wanted to see things the way Charlie Kirk was seeing them as well. So let me bring up a few quick articles, because Charlie Kirk is looking at this race war that's going on in the media, where you're allowed to say certain things when you're a certain color, the complexion for protection, right? You're allowed to say certain things about a certain race. You're allowed to say a lot of crazy things about white people in society. Let's just be real. You're allowed to start certain organizations when you're a certain color. BET, Black Entertainment, you're allowed to have that channel. What if there was a white entertainment channel that said white entertainment? You see? But you can have that. But if a white man has, if white people have a channel called white entertainment, no, you can't, you can't have that. There's been dating apps. What was the Black Planet? You remember that? Black Planet, for black people to go date other black people. What if they had White Planet? What if they had White Universe, White World, or something like that? White Love. How would you feel about that? What would you say? So these are some of the things, these are the double standards in society. These are things that Charlie Kirk says, and he actually brought that up in some of his lectures. Let me just bring up some of the articles that, you know, that I think he was referring to. This was one by Don Lemon, right? Don Lemon, this article is by the New American, Court Kirkwood. It's titled Don Lemon's Anti-White Smear, a Not-So-White Lie. CNN anchor Don Lemon finally exposed himself as a resolute racist last week when he suggested that America needs a white guy ban because a crazy lunatic murdered 2 black people in Kentucky. CNN has not fired the angry race baiter, blah, blah, blah. You know, obviously Don Lemon is not on CNN, but he has been for a while. So let me just play this clip of what Don Lemon said. Let me bring it back. I just want you to listen carefully to what Don Lemon says.
So we have to stop demonizing people and realize the biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right. And we have to start doing something about them. There is no travel ban on them. There is no ban on, you know, they had the Muslim ban. There is no white guy ban. So what do we do about that? So, and first of all, let me just say this. Maurice Stollard is the name, and Vicky Jones, and they have been lost in all of this. 2 people who were killed on Wednesday that you talked about. They have been lost about this, and I know that people feel that this story has not gotten enough coverage, and we will honor them tonight in our program. But go on, Chris, sorry.
Good. No. I'm going to do it in the closing. You're making the right point. You're covering the right story, and I appreciate you for that.
All right. See you soon.
All right.
He could say that white men are the biggest threat. Don Lemon could come on national news and say that white men are the biggest threat to this country. And he could say, there's no white guy ban. Let me ask you something. If somebody came on national news and said that black men were the biggest threat to this country and said, there is no ban, there is no black guy ban, what do we do about that? There is no travel ban on them. There is no ban, you know? They had the Muslim ban. There's no black man ban. So what do we do about that? If it was done in the reverse, if a white person said that, if a Hispanic person said that, a Chinese person, whatever. There's certain things that you can get away with. You see, the complexion for protection. That's just the reality. That's the double standard. Here's my last article. I'm sure Charlie Kirk probably saw this too. The New York Times stands by new editor who sent vile anti-white tweets. This was in 2018, but this has been going on for years. Let me just pull up the tweets that she had. This is the editor of the New York Times. that put up these tweets. Okay, so I'm not going to use the language that that she used, but these are the tweets that the former editor of the New York Times had, okay, or put up. Oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men. I dare you to get on Wikipedia and play things white people can definitely take credit for. It's really hard. Are white people genetically predisposed to burn faster in the sun, thus logically being only fit to live underground like groveling goblins? Cancel white people. White men are BS. Number 2, no one cares about women. You can threaten anyone on the internet except cops. I just realized why I can't stand watching Breaking Bad or Battlestar Galactica. The premise of both is just white people being miserable. White people have stopped breeding. You will all go extinct soon. This was my plan all along. This is the editor of the New York Times, okay? A big media outlet saying these kinds of things. If you found out that it was the reverse, right? If it was a white person saying that against black people and they worked for CNN, MSNBC, Fox, or whatever, all hell would break loose, okay? And this is the double standard. But you know what? I'm sure she got a nice paying job at the New York Times. This is the double standard. You can come out and say this and you won't be canceled. And you know what? Nobody should be saying or using this kind of language towards anybody. But this is the double standard is what I'm saying. You can say it when it applies to one race. The last comment that I'll leave you with is this. When I was going through Instagram and I was listening to or reading the comments, Teslyn Figaro, who is she has a show. She's on Revolt. She's on The Breakfast Club. She put this post up. She said, "We all saw what happened to George Floyd's neck on camera. It's a damn shame that many people with large platforms tried to convince us that we didn't see what we saw with our own eyes. Perhaps all deaths should require a toxicology report, even if we saw the person being murdered on camera." So this is the disgusting kind of comment, you know, or comments that are being said about Kirk. So she's talking about when George Floyd, you know, died in police custody. And she's saying, you know, we should apply. She's referring to people that reacted towards George Floyd's death when he died. And they said, well, maybe he died of fentanyl. You know, it was the fentanyl that killed him. Okay. And I would say that's insensitive. The first initial reaction people should have is say, hey, somebody lost their life. That's sad that he died like that. Yes, I would say there has to be a level of sensitivity. But do you have to respond with that same energy towards Charlie Kirk or when it happens to someone else? So I see this tit for tat game going on, you know, in the internet. There's a lack of sensitivity. There's a lack of humanity. One thing I noticed is that when George Floyd died, right, a lot of people were quick to come to George Floyd's defense, not knowing what happened. I'm not saying anything was justified. It's sad that George Floyd died. It's terrible that he died. Okay. A lot of people that would criticize Charlie Kirk would be quick to defend George Floyd, not knowing the circumstances that led up to George Floyd's death. For instance, I was watching The Fall of Minneapolis, where it shows coverage of George Floyd engaging in what they said was a drug transaction with a gentleman. After that, he goes into a store. He uses fake counterfeit bills. After that, you know, they said he was using drugs. He was on fentanyl at the time or some other drug. The police tried to or pulled him over. They repeatedly asked him to have a seat. They wanted to ask him questions. They wanted him to be in a certain position. He kept resisting over and over and over again to the point where it led up to the time where he was on the floor with the cop. He said he couldn't breathe when he was in the car. He was saying he couldn't breathe. And nobody was standing on his neck. Nobody was sitting on him or anything like that. Okay, they were just trying to get him to sit down and to stop resisting. This is what kind of led up to his his death. Not saying that that should have been done, but I'm saying there were certain things. Had he listened, maybe, had certain things not been done, maybe that would have went a different way. But to show you the reaction, the hypocrisy and the reaction, people were quick to jump to his defense. And keep in mind that George Floyd had a criminal record as well. He did some things in his past. People brushed that aside. They defended him quickly after he died. They thought it was inhumane, the way he died, etc. Fast forward to Charlie Kirk. Those same people that would defend George Floyd, knowing the criminal record, not even seeing what led up to his death, those same people, they would blast Charlie Kirk for a few edited comments taken out of context, right? They would blast him, say that they will dance on his grave. He got the same energy back, just saying that, just applauding the fact that Charlie Kirk died, pretty much. Okay? They would say things like this. They wouldn't look at any kind of context. They won't go back into Charlie Kirk's history. They won't look at his videos. They won't look at Blexit. They won't see his promotion of the gospel. They won't see his promotion of having good, strong black families or speaking out against evil or anything like that. They'll defend Charlie Kirk's death, and they will justify George Floyd's innocence. Do you see the hypocrisy? Do you see the bias there? Right? And all we had to show when it came to George Floyd was a picture of a white man standing over a black man. That's all you needed to know to make a judgment. And you cried racist, not even knowing that there were cops of other ethnicities standing around George Floyd when it happened. People would get in the streets, riot, tear down buildings, destroy cities. All of this for George Floyd, you would do all of that. But when it comes to for a man who had a criminal record as well, right? And for a man who was resisting arrest using counterfeit bills, yes, I got to drive the point home. But when it comes to Charlie Kirk, you would say that man deserved death and to be shot and assassinated, publicly executed. A man who, to my knowledge, didn't use drugs, didn't have a criminal record, preached the gospel, wanted to see black families united, believed that black babies were beautiful as well. Yes. Wanted a culture of excellence, wanted a culture where you had to have merit and you earned your way. These are the things that he promoted. You would be joyous or celebrate that man's death, right? Instead, that's the hypocrisy. That's the bias that I see. Anyway, I'm done for today. Sorry about how long I went, but I had to drive the point home. I'm trying to point out the inconsistency and hypocrisy of America and what I see online. And actually, I'm pointing out the darkness of humanity. The comments that I've seen about Charlie Kirk are ridiculous. It's a whole nother level of darkness and depravity that, wow, I didn't even know you had it in you to be that wicked. Look at this comment. Somebody says, but Charlie died from the loss of blood, not getting shot. That's how petty people are. That's how petty. Is that a humane reaction? Anyway, that's my show for today. Go check out some of the articles that I put up. Go check out some of Charlie Kirk's videos to see for yourself. Don't listen to me. I'm just out here trying to fight racism and preach the gospel. Anyway, what was that scripture? I'll leave you with the scripture before I leave. There's a scripture that says, Galatians 3, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is no male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. That's the kind of message that Charlie Kirk promoted. I'm out. Believe in God. We need God more than ever, as you can see. Anyway, peace.